Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I would really appreciate it and I promise to update daily. If you love this watch, you can see it and you can purchase it on our website, thewatchbox.com. Today we are discussing a rare bird made from 2006 to 2008. This is the IWC5242-02. This is the second generation IWC Portuguese minute repeater, and between 06 and 08 they made 250 pieces of this limited series in pink gold that you see on my wrist. My 16 centimeter circumference wrist wears it well. Though the Portuguese has been oversized since the original reference 325 of 1939, it has always worn well on a smaller wrist. This watch, 43 millimeters in diameter, is fairly slim. At 12.7 millimeters thick, it's only about as thick as a Rolex Submariner, so you can wear it under a cuff with anything that will fit a Submariner under the cuff. Lug to lug, it's reasonable, 51.3 millimeters, and the spacing between the lugs is really the only modern dimension on this watch, 22 millimeters, whereas the vintage watches appeared a bit pinched at the junction of strap and lug. This one has a modern planted full-figured stance across the wrist. It doesn't look like it's too narrow at the ends. The strap is a handsome piece, and as you can see, the watch is sumptuously appointed with a large rectangular scale alligator leather strap, monotone stitch, folded edges. There's a black calfskin on the underside. It's a brand new IWC factory strap, superb condition, proper specification, and there is a mighty clasp, a lot of metal. All of high polish internally. You can see externally it has a combination of polished bevels and satin finished facets. It's a handsome and substantial piece that prevents you from dropping the watch while donning or removing, but it also provides a little bit of a counterweight on the wrist. So if you like to have a heavy clasp or a heavy bracelet on your watch to wear your watch loose and not have it move around, the clasp helps to act like the keel of a sailboat to prevent this one from capsizing on your wrist. Now the case is simple. You can see a lot going on the 9 o'clock side with the repeater slide, polished contrast with the satin finish of the flank. You'll appreciate that the Portuguese maintains its vintage flair, as the mid case is quite slim, a trait common to vintage watches, even though this is a modern timepiece. Satin finish on its flanks. There's a polished junction with the bezel and a polished junction with the case back. You'll note there's a small vertical aspect of the bezel that gives way to a concave profile that visually pairs the mass of the watch. The lug hoods are of high polish, and of course this is a modular complication. 250 pieces for the minute repeater on the top, and then the remainder of the 402 pieces of this movement are on the bottom, which is why the crown sits relatively low in relation to the thickness of the case. Now the watch has another vintage inspired cue, which is this domed and thick box section sapphire. It's scratch resistant like a sapphire, but it gives you the off-axis distortion and the height effect that you get on a vintage plexiglass, as you would have seen on a vintage 30s, 40s, or 50s Portugueser from IWC. Let's give ourselves a bit more light, zoom in, improve the focus, and take a look at the dial. One of the big changes from the first generation IWC Portuguese minute repeater of 1995 to the second generation watch that you see here was the change from a set of applique indices and numerals to that with a railroad style minutes track outboard and a sector style calibration for the small seconds at 9 o'clock. Rose gold numerals, rose gold indices, rose gold hands, leaf style hands at center, counterweighted lancet style hands at 9 o'clock, evocative of the original Portuguese, which used leaf style hands, Arabic numerals, and small seconds. Note the absence of a date. This is a purist's high complication. There's a slight countersink to the subdial for the seconds, giving the dial additional depth. It is a matte, non-grained, one might say opaline style silver. So a matte silver opaline. It is not a silver sunburst. Turn it all over, you can see part of the movement. This is caliber 95290. It's based on an IWC caliber 95 pocket watch movement, which is to say it's very much like the original Portugueser, which was specified by two Portuguese importers of IWC watches to their home market, and they wanted a wristwatch that was as accurate as a pocket watch, and that was unheard of at the time. The only way to accomplish it was to put a pocket watch movement in a wristwatch, which produced what was called a monster at the time, but became a signature of the manufacturer. The first oversized watch decades before that was a thing. The architecture is not just big and broad, so properly sized for the case and redolent of pocket watch engineering, but you can see some pocket watch features. First, it's a masterclass in watchmaking. Do you want to teach someone how a watch works? Well, you start with the crown wheel, move to the ratchet wheel, which sits atop the barrel, and then you follow the train through the center wheel. Center wheels are very iconic of pocket watch movements. They're not great wheels off center, right dead center. Moves through a series of wheels. The center wheel, third wheel, fourth wheel, the escape wheel, the lever, the balance. The balance is huge. It's almost 1/3 the diameter of the movement, and it has an overcoil hairspring, which allows this watch to keep excellent time in every orientation with respect to gravity, which is why you note that this caliber 95290 is adjusted in 5 positions like a chronometer. Also note that the watch, which features 54 jewels, is also beautifully finished, and this is high horology finish that is not universal to IWC timepieces. You can begin to see the glint and gleam of the rounded mirrored chamfer, the true hand-laid anglage on the edge of every one of these bridges, and note that they are finger-style bridges in vintage fashion. You'll also see the same treatment in the screw countersinks, and the screw heads themselves are black polished. There's a perfectly aligned linear Cote de Genève across the bridges and an even engine-turned perlage across the base plate. You have that overcoil on the giant slow-beating balance, 18,000 vibrations per hour, all of this manually wound, 46-hour power reserve. The watch does feature stop seconds, and if you look closely, you can actually see the stop seconds lever right next to the center wheel as it moves against the balance to stop and allow you to set this watch to the nearest second. It can be set very precisely. Interesting backstory. Not only do you have an IWC pocket watch caliber on the bottom, you have a movement on the top. Everything is on the dial side for the minute repeater. That was actually designed by Renault et Papy before they were Audemars Piguet Renault et Papy. Originally designed for the IWC Grand Complication 3770 during the mid-80s. This minute repeater module was designed by Renault et Papy, and thus it is a high horology component of a watch that features old school pocket watch on the bottom and new school luxury era high horology on the top. The best of both worlds. Did you note during the chimes at the beginning that this watch has a nearly silent governor? Yet another refinement in a watch that is deceptively complex. It doesn't show it from the dial side, but beneath the skin, things are happening. Open your mind, open your ears, and open your wrist to this IWC Portuguese minute repeater.